All right, everybody, can we just stop with all this stuff about attraction? I am not pleased with this. So needless to say, and I've talked about it on this channel before, I am not a fan of this idea of manifesting and anything in the manifestation neighborhood. It becomes a way of blaming people for their misfortunes too often, and for others to feel falsely safe because they are manifesting better than other people, thus taking responsibility for really what's basically luck in some cases. And the person, then it's assumed that the person who has something bad just didn't manifest correctly. It's New Age prattle, as far as I'm concerned, from where I'm sitting, and I have rarely seen it do any good, except with a handful of lucky people, but I have, at least in the world of narcissistic relationships, seen it do harm. And the way we treat survivors of narcissistic or other abusive relationships is where, like I said, it does the most harm. Apparently, and this manifesting stuff relates to this concept of attraction, that you energetically attract stuff to you, which I guess sounds really good when life is going your way, but becomes very much about blame and shame and complicity when a person is in a harmful circumstance, such as a narcissistic relationship. There's a sort of cold dismissiveness to taking this position. What are you manifesting? Perhaps you attracted this. Are you kidding me? And I've seen firsthand this question of, what are you manifesting to attract this to you? The harm that this does to survivors, especially those who may have believed in this discourse about manifesting and attraction and actually held themselves responsible for years in their relationship and just scrunched up their faces, I guess, and just tried to manifest more or better. And when the narcissistic person kept being narcissistic, they would keep filing it under or facing it as, what is it in me that is attracting this? How about nothing? How about that it's your bad luck that you are within shouting distance of this narcissistic person, or your bad luck that you were born to them or work for them or whatever it may be. My drive and commitment to doing this work on narcissistic abuse is basically that I am sick and tired of toxic relationships being simplified to just a two to tango paradigm. And on top of that, when we talk about toxic relationships, we actually get more lost in the inner workings of the narcissist, the bully, the perpetrator, the causer of the harm, than we do in understanding the dynamics of these relationships, what happens to people in these relationships, and why people get stuck. A lot of why people get stuck is the messaging from the world at large. They get asked, what is your part in this? Did you set a boundary? Did you communicate clearly? Well, what about their trauma? Is there a way you could think differently about this? Rather than saying, yo, this other person's behavior is a pattern, it's not healthy, and nothing you do or say is going to change it. And their personality is not going to change, so their behavior is not going to change, and make your decisions accordingly. The whole, what about you is attracting this, it really makes me feel sick every time I read it or hear about it or say even said to me. Because honestly, in a narcissistic relationship, the so-called thing in the person or energy that is attracting this, frankly, at best, is wrong place, wrong time, bad luck, perhaps not knowing fully what narcissism is, and perhaps having had a history of prior narcissistic relationships or trauma that undercut being able to see yourself clearly. But none of that is the core issue. The real issue is that the narcissistic person's behavior in a relationship is unacceptable. You can spend all day understanding their why they do what they do, but when you bring it back around, you're in the same place. They're behaving in a way that's simply not okay, and it's hurting you. It's less about energetic attraction than it is about a clear understanding of what is acceptable. You aren't attracting this. You are simply in the unfortunate position of being in this relationship. which of course goes back to the often cited issue of, well, then just leave. If it's so bad, then just get out of the relationship. I mean, would that it were that simple. You know the simple reasons people don't leave: post-separation abuse, harassment, kids, money, custody, family court, culture, stigma, lack of social support. And when people don't leave, because leaving may often unleash a whole nother set of problems, they are also blamed for being part of the problem and not actually making a choice. It's not really a choice, because all you're really doing is choosing between bad and bad. That doesn't feel like a choice. Turning to manifesting and attraction as life approaches carries the danger of playing on people's sense of helplessness, powerlessness, and hopelessness in life and relationship situations. And for this reason, you can see how survivors of narcissistic relationships or people in narcissistic relationships for a long time may be vulnerable to believing that all this manifesting stuff can bring some real wisdom. Anyone watching this video and who has been through a narcissistic relationship, y'all could write a book on helplessness. Nothing you do works. Nothing you say works. You feel like you're a researcher trying to figure out exactly how to predict the narcissistic person's behavior, perhaps in hopes of getting ahead of it or anticipating it, or maybe even changing it. You try it all. You talk more, you talk less, you put it in an email, you do couples therapy, family therapy, your own therapy. You keep the house clean, you make more money, you lose weight, you give in to whatever they want, you keep your mouth shut, you do what they demand you do for a living, you give up friends, you give up on other relationships like family relationships, but nothing works. You keep, no matter what you do, you keep getting gaslighted and emotionally abused, and yet you also feel the decent moments in the relationship and recognize that it's not as simple as, well, this is a mean person, but rather a person where you still feel good feelings and want that to last. So in the midst of this, thinking that you could take this into your own hands by manifesting and focusing on attracting the healthy love you deserve or whatever it may be, could be a way to take back a sense of control in what otherwise feels like an unfixable and painful situation where there is no way to really change it. Listen, if a person finds that manifesting is what works for them, then you do you. But please do not fall into the discourse of, well, she's in this unhealthy relationship because that's what she's attracting, and she has to work on that. No, no, and no. Put the focus where it belongs, which is the unhealthy person's unhealthy behavior, which is often interlinked with a few moments here and there that feel normal and good, and may be happening in a person that is often quite engaging and charming and valued by others and does well in the world. It makes it confusing and difficult because of all of that to keep a focus on just the unhealthy behaviors, which are the ones that are causing all the harm. When I read this idea of, well, maybe she attracted the abuse nonsense, I recognize that even when a person really commits to healing from a narcissistic relationship, that the challenge becomes shutting down the foolishness of the world and some of this toxically positive New Age nonsense. No, you did not attract this. You may have gotten stuck because of old demons, but did you pull it forth from the universe? No, that's not how this works. Instead of all this attraction talk, the focus really needs to be on awareness and education, on seeing it and getting it and recognizing that when the human need for attachment comes up against intermittent abuse, nobody has a fighting chance. And that compassion for how difficult these relationships are and reality about how difficult leaving can be, that's the path forward. Not magical thinking, but uncomfortable radical acceptance. Thanks again.